Okay, good morning. So we're now doing a new simon. It's a short simon, and we'll get through it today. Kuf samach hey, din ha'isat tzracha v'reitze lechol. A person who goes to the bathroom and then he wants to wash until it's time to go and eat. How should he conduct himself? Now this is actually a very common shaila, and it should be a common shaila because if you look, the Mechaber starts off ha'isat tzracha v'reitze lechol yitl shtei pa'amim etc. But look at the first Mishnah Berurah, you've got an aleph. Kosev bashla, the kol adam yivdek atzman lefanos kodim anatila. Before a person sits down and has a meal, he should just check that he doesn't need the bathroom. So if he does need the bathroom, then you go to the bathroom before washing, and then what do? You come out of the bathroom, you've got to wash your hands because you've been to the bathroom, and you need to wash your hands for bread. So what's the seder? How do you conduct yourself? So that's what this sif is dealing with. So it says the Mechaber sif aleph. Ha'eset tzrachov, someone who goes to the bathroom, and then he wants to eat bread and wash his hands, yitl shtei pa'amim, he needs to wash his hands twice. Al rishayna mevarich asher yotza, v'al hashniya mevarich al netilas yodayim. V'meina reitz a little ele pa'machas. If for whatever reason he only wants to wash once, maybe he hasn't got a lot of water, the Mishnah Berurah says, la'acha sheshofach pa'machas al yodov, after he's washed his hands once, and then he sort of rubs them. Yevorech asher yotze, he makes the bracha of asher yotze, v'achach b'shas niguv, and then at the time of drying them, he makes the bracha of al netilas yodayim. Okay, let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Interesting halachas. Ha'is tzracha, we said kosev b'shloch chol adam yivdek atzman lefanos kodim anatila. A person should check that he doesn't need the bathroom before he has a meal. V'chein kosev b'sefer seder hayom. Yitl shtei pa'amim, says the Mishnah Berurah, cotton base. The im yitl pa'am achas, v'yivarech mitchila asher yotza, v'achar kach al netilas yodayim, because if he washes once, and then he says asher yotza, and then he says al netilas yodayim, have a hefsek bein hanetila lebirchasa. You've got a hefsek between the netila and the bracha. You've washed your hands, and then you said al netilas yodayim, but in between you said asher yotza. That's a hefsek. And if, however, you say the bracha of al netilas yodayim first, and then you say asher yotza, have a hefsek ben birchas netila lahamoitzi. You're then being mafsik between the bracha of al netilas yodayim and hamoitzi. So you seem to be caught whichever way you go. Maybe I've got a good solution. Maybe you should wash your hands once, say al netilas yodayim, make hamoitzi, and then say asher yotza afterwards. We've seen before, back in the time when we were learning asher yotza, that how long have you got to say the asher yotza? Really, you should do it straight away, but you've actually got until you need the bathroom again. And that could be a while later. So if you make moitzi and then a few minutes into the suda you make asher yotza, that could be a solution. We don't like that either. Gam kein ein nochen. That's also not correct. Why? Shechiyuv chal olav miyad. The bracha, the chiyuv to say asher yotza falls on a person straight away. Kashe also tzrachav after he's been to the bathroom. Ve'ein la'achra kol kach, and therefore you shouldn't delay it. Even to wait till after hamoitzi. So you're in a bit of a pickle. Just by the way, sometimes there is a temptation to delay asher yotza in the following situation. We know that when you make tfilas haderech, preferably the tfilas haderech should be a bracha smucha lechaverta, and therefore, let's say on a train. So you go to the bathroom on the train. You're now sort of out of King's Cross, out of London, and your chiyuv to say tfilas haderech begins. So preferably you make a b'rei nefashos, you make an asher yotza, and then you go into tfilas haderech. So can you delay your asher yotza in order to say brachas of tfilas haderech smucha lechaverta? So that's why he deals with in two. He says, it's very interesting, v'hayetze lederech in footnote number 2, v'hayetze lishois esed dakos, and he wants to wait 10 minutes ad mevarach asher yotza, after he's been to the bathroom before he says the bracha of asher yotza, v'hayetze lahasmich es bracha tfilas haderech, like I just said, kadesh yitibrichas smucha lechaverta, right? Das hagon Reb Chaim Kanievsky is mutter, that you're allowed to. So that's a useful idea to know that you can delay your asher yotza in order to make a tfilas haderech smucha lechaverta. Okay, now continuing the Mishnah Berurah. For kosvu ha'achronim, I'm about 8 or 9 lines down. For kosvu ha'achronim, the tzorich lizoher shelo little b'pam harishon netila gemura. Now this is where it gets a bit tricky. You shouldn't do a netila gemura. That means to wash your hands properly with a kli after you've been to the bathroom, in this instance, because then, when you wash your hands for Netilas Yadayim, for the Suda, your hands are tahar. So what's the purpose? V'rak ma'at mishum nekiyos, you just wash your hands for cleanliness, for hygiene. D'ilav hochi having nitaru yodov the palm harishan, ve'ein shaykh levorach oidan netilah shniya, because really the second bracha on the second netilah is unnecessary. V'chanal b'simen kufnu chesiv zayin. Now, if you look at footnote number 3, he brings to Minhagim of Rav Vozner and Rav Shlomo Zalman, very interestingly. Minhag, I'm about 3 lines into footnote 3. Minhag shal gon Rav Shmuel Vozner, b'mikra kazeh, in that situation where you've been to the bathroom just before your meal, who little yod of the rishona rak at soif kishri ha'etz bois. Rav Vozner would wash his hands until his knuckles. V'rak achakach little yod of ad haperek l'suda. And then when he'd wash again, he would wash his entire hand for the suda. So therefore he has been moisif, and therefore it's not a redundant natila. And then he says, Rishad Shuv Zoratzin Kosov Shalafim Ashabir She'ein little yodeim lachil me'aberez. Like we said previously, that you shouldn't wash your hands from a tap. Yeah, she'ena nechshav kakli imkein yochel lishtav es yodov tchila beberez ulevarach hashiyot. So what you can do is wash your hands from a tap, which is not a halachically good netilah for netilas yadayim, but it certainly is sufficient for going to the bathroom. V'achach little es yodov mekedin mikli v'chein noag agon Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Yeah, so Shlomo Zalman, after if you'd go to the bathroom before washing for a suda, he would wash his hands from a tap and say ashayotza, and then he would wash his hands properly with a kli to do netilas yadayim. Yeah.
Just touch himself here.
So yeah, the trouble that people have seen that it's before the Piskei Teshuvos, there's a lot of read on this. So Chaim is saying that wash your hands with a kli, then scratch yourself, put your hand down the back of your shirt or something. You're matameh. So they don't like that because you shouldn't be matameh yadayim lechatchila. That's what they say. But I have seen that Eitzah. Yeah. Okay, let's carry on. Mishnah Berurah. V'da t'yesh kama poskim she'esfir lehu. The others say no. What's the whole problem? The ashayotz lo have a hefsek ben birchas netilah moitzi. Wash, make netilas yadayim, then say ashayotza, and then make hamoitzi. And the ashayotza is not a hefsek. Mishum da kol letzorech taras yadayim. It's all for the same end. It's all to make your hands tahor. V'ave k'moi gabbel l'Torah b'simen kuf samach zayin, which we'll get to that, which is not considered a hefsek. V'alkein in b'dieva not a netilah achas kadin n'shein netilah achil. And therefore, if you wash your hands once for dual purpose of ashayotza and netilas yadayim, yevorech mitchila netilas yadayim, v'achkach ashayotza, and then you just make 2 brachas on one netilah. So wash your hands properly, with a keli, and make 2 brachas al netilas yadayim and ashayotza. And if you look at number 4, he says very interesting. V'chaznish kosov sha'minhag b'zeh kedas hamakilim. That seems to be the prevalent minhag, that you wash your hands once and you make 2 brachas. Shenoitlim pam achas kadin netila u'mavorchim al netilas yadayim v'achkach ashayotza. Interestingly, of a sefer dinim v'hanhogas, which is Moshe Sternbuch, kosov shekein noag chaznish. That's indeed how the chaznish was practiced. That if the chaznish would go to the bathroom, which is a very common occurrence before the meal, he would wash netilas yadayim like normal for bread, and he would make 2 brachas, netilas yadayim, and then ashayotza. And the ashayotza is not considered the hefsek between the netilas yadayim and hamotzi. V'agon Moshe Schneider. Now that Moshe Schneider here is of London fame. He was the famous Rosh Yeshiva of Schneider's Yeshiva, the Talmud of the Chofetz Chaim, and he had illustrious talmidim, Rav Sternbuch and Avdim Chaim Chaim, Rav Asher Weiss, Rav Tuvia Weiss, and I'm reading at the moment Moshe Reichman, the famous Kvir. He also was they were all chaverim in the yeshiva at the same time. Anyway, Hagan Moshe Schneider, Hayed Sherah Pam Chofetz Chaim. He once witnessed the Chofetz Chaim, right, the author of the Mishnah Berurah. Sheyotz beis hakisei v'notzil yod of rak pamachas, and he did exactly this. He washed his hands once, or birach al netilas yadayim, and then he washed netilas yadayim, and he said in netilas yadayim v'la'acha haniguv, and then after he dried his hands, birach hashayotza. So I'll summarize at the end of the sieve exactly what the options are. Okay, yeah.
So it's the other way around?
No, netilas yadayim first, and then he dried his hands, and then he said ashayotza. The point is, Yossi, that the ashayotza is not considered a hefsek between the netilah and the hamotzi. Yeah. So it's netilas yadayim. By the way, the Piskei Teshuvos, I remember he brings different opinions which way around you should do it, but it seems from the Mishnah Berurah that you do netilas yadayim first, then ashayotza, and then hamotzi. Okay. The yesh lismech ala poskim elu, and therefore he says you can rely on these poskim. V'uadin lechatchilim hayakashel little shtei netilas medechik mayim, and certainly lechatchila if you haven't got so much water, yitl achas vivarach an tilas v'achkach asher yotza. Good. Kosav Magen Avram doiset tzrochav be'emtza hasuda. Now so far that was before the meal. What if you go to the bathroom during the meal? You clearly you only wash your hands once. You say al netilas yadayim va'achkach asher yotza. Given the ein sorich levarach hamotzi, because you don't need to make hamotzi again because the lakam b'simen kuf ein ches. Imkein ein kan hefsek. And we saw yesterday that you only make a bracha if it's the gedolim, if etc. etc. But otherwise you don't make a bracha. Va'ayim asher kosavnu b'simen Kuf Samach Dalet Seif Beis Mishnah Berurah. Okay, La'acha Shafach Rotzulema Doim Birchas Asher Yotze Kodim Shegias Van Birchas Al Netilas Yadayim V'hainu La'acha Shafach Ra Pam Achas Al Yodav V'Pachos Mervius V'Shivshef Yodav Zu Bezu Da'adayin Lo Nigma HaNetila V'Achkach Shofech Pam Shnia Al Yodav L'Ta'am Mayim HaRishonim. You then wash the second time. This is all going in the Mechaba. V'Oz Mevarach Al Netilas Yadayim Menagvon, and then you dry them. Va'afim the mevul le'el b'simun kuf samach beis. Ta meshafshev yodav achamam rishonim nitmu yodav zeh mizeh ve'ein moel achkach ha'mayim hashniim. Because if you wash with less than a revius, you haven't yet been matai your hands, and therefore you've got to dry them and wash again. Yesh loima, you can answer over here. Tehochem mayrish and nishbach al shtei yodav ka'achas. You pour them over both hands at once. For the oz chashivi ki yad achas or muter l'shafshefom. Okay. For Kosva Achronim, the Lididon, the Nahigan little revius, Bas Achas al Yad V'Yad, we pour generous revius on each hand. Imkein Nigma Tekav Taras Yodayim V'Roy Levarach Al Netilas Yadayim, because your hands are now clean, and therefore you can make Al Netilas Yadayim. Imkein Birchas Asher Yotza have a hefsek bein Netilas Levracha V'Yosef Tov Lasses Kof in the Rishon Shamuska B'Shulchan Aruch V'Ayim Asher Kasav Nolel B'Sif Cotton base. Okay, fine. So let me just summarize. What does one do in practice if you go to the bathroom? As one should check yourself before you need before the meal. What should you do? So there seems to be three eitzas. The first eitzah is like Rav Vosna, the second like Rabbi Yashiv, and the third is like the Chazon Ish and the Chovetz Chaim. I.e., the first two are really a variation of the same theme. You don't wash your hands properly. You either wash your hands till your knuckles, like Rav Vosna did, and then you say Asher Yotza, and then you wash your hands till the wrist, and you say Al Netilas Yadayim, and then go to Hamoitzi. Or you wash your hands with a tap, you say Asher Yotza, and then wash your hands properly with a keli, and say Al Netilas Yadayim, and then go to Hamoitzi. That's the first two options. What the Chazon Ish seems to say is the minhag, and what is preferable is that you actually wash your hands once, you say Al Netilas Yadayim, you then say Asher Yotza, and then you go to Hamoitzi. Yeah, and that seems to be the preference.
After you dry the hands.
Yeah. So in other words, you wash your hands properly.
After the nigel.
Yeah. So you wash your hands. You say Al Netilas Yadayim. You dry them, and then you say Asher Yotza. Yeah. Okay, Beseda. That's actually important, by the way. When you do Netilas Yadayim Stamazoi for the Suda, that you wash your hands and then you make the bracha and then you dry them, because it should be over lasiyason, and then the actual action of the drying is considered part of the netila, and therefore it's over lasiyason. Yeah. Fine. Okay, good. Let's do sifes. Sifes is also quite is interesting. What's the when you wash? And should the balabais wash last or should he wash first? What's what's the order? Because obviously he's going to have to keep quiet for a long time. So says the Mishnah Berurah. Let's see what the Mechaber says. Im Rabim Mesubim Mesuda. You got a large crowd for a Suda. Hagodl Noitel Yadav Tchila. The Mechaber says that the Godel, whoever that is, the biggest Talmid Chacham, the balabais, whatever it may be, he washes his hands first. V'harosh hayarogid little bachrina. The Rosh, however, would wash last. That there shouldn't be a big hefsik between he's the one who's being moitzi everyone, so therefore there should be a minimal break between the netila and the hamoitzi that he shouldn't speak. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Cotton Dalet Hagodl Neitel Techenu Kvoida, because that's considered the covered that he should wash first. That's the first shit in the Shulchan Aruch. V'harosh hayirogel svirlei the Shani Bizman Talmud, and he says because the Rosh says when that opinion which says that he should wash first, that's in the times of the Gemara. Because in those days each person had their own little table. He would wash his hands, and each person would go to their little table, which on their own chaise lounge, on their own little recliner, and they would make hamoitzi. There's one table for everybody, and everyone sort of waits and begins the meal together. That after everyone has washed their hands, and he's moitzi everyone. It's better to wash for the balabais to wash last, that there shouldn't be a big gap between his natila and his hamoitzi. Hiskim the toiv lizoy mela hafsik umeledaber, that you got to be very careful not to be mafsik or to speak. And we're all very strict about this. Therefore, if you've got a big meal with a lot of guests, where there's going to be a very long delay between you washing and the person making moitzi being moitzi you, and people might be tempted to speak in between. Let everyone do their own thing. And you shouldn't let anyone wait. With a big gap. We'll talk about how long that is. Now, look at number 9. Interestingly, he says, if there's not a concern of a large gap, so in other words, what are we saying? The Rosh seems to, although the Mechaber brings two opinions, the first is that the Gadol washes first and then goes to the table and waits and his mates everyone, but the Rosh says no, that he should actually wash last to minimize the gap. Fine. But what should he be moitzi everyone? So ideally, yes. If there's not going to be a long gap, one person is moitzi everyone. Beroivam hadras melech. However, if there's going to be a very long gap, then it's better for each person to make their own moitzi. Of course, for a Shabbos meal, you've got to make sure there's lechem mishnah for everyone. But that seems to be the conclusion. Okay, Seder, we'll leave it there.